neurological level, the nervous system responding to the pain stimulus pretty much normally. Despite the fact that the nervous system is processing the pain stimulus, you're still getting this reduction in felt pain. One more phenomenon to talk about here. Skip that one. We'll do this one instead. This is a fascinating phenomenon involving hypnotic alterations in color perception. Here, it's not exactly hypnotic blindness because the subjects are still able to see, but what the hypnotic suggestion does is to target the subject, what it is that the subject sees. The suggestion is that they'll be colorblind, that the world will appear to them in grayscale. Again, this is a PET imaging study. There are fMRI studies of hypnosis these days, but they're on other kinds of phenomena, and I don't want to talk about them here. This was work by Stephen Koslin, a perception researcher, cognitive neuroscientist then at Harvard University, in collaboration with David Spiegel at Stanford, whose picture I showed you before. These are all highly hypnotizable subjects who were given who are running this experiment. The stimuli are here. This is a colored stimulus, as obviously, and this is the same stimulus in terms of luminance and saturation and all of that, except done in grayscale. There are 4 conditions in this experiment. In one, the subject was presented with the colored stimulus with no suggestion for color blindness. Second condition, presented with the colored stimulus with a suggestion for color blindness. The world is going to be a world of blacks and whites and grays. Color is draining out of your vision, is the way they put it. It's basically what we call a negative hallucination. It's not blindness exactly. It's a problem with perception, not with sensation. In another condition, the subjects were presented with the grayscale stimulus and were asked to experience color flowing into the stimulus, not flowing out. That's a positive hallucination. Up here, you've got a negative hallucination. The subject's not supposed to see something that's there. Here, you've got a positive hallucination where the subject is supposed to see something that's not there. In this case, see color in a grayscale stimulus. And then the fourth control condition, the subjects were asked to see the grayscale pattern as grayscale, okay, not given any suggestion at all. What's interesting about this is that there's a specific area of the brain, okay, what's known as the fusiform color area. It's right there, okay, near the rest of the fusiform gyrus. That is particularly active when subjects are presented with a colored stimulus. That is, when subjects are seeing things in color. And what Koslin and Spiegel were able to show was that there were changes in activity of the fusiform color area that were consistent not with the stimulus, but with the suggestion. So when the subjects were presented with a colored stimulus and told to see it in color, the fusiform color area became very active. When they were presented with the colored stimulus and it was suggested that it's grayscale, the activity in the fusiform color area was significantly diminished. When they were presented with the grayscale stimulus and asked to see it in grayscale, again, there was very little activity in the fusiform color area because there's no color in the stimulus, no color in the experience. But when they were presented with the grayscale stimulus and asked to see it, it was suggested that it was a colored stimulus, you could see an increase in activity in the fusiform color area. The patterns of activity in the brain changed with the suggestion, not with the stimulus. Changed with the experience, not with the sensation. A very dramatic example from neuroscience about how these hypnotic suggestions can actually have an effect on brain activity as well. So here you can see the results of this. the color region is most prominently seen in the left, okay? So here, grayscale is gray, very little activity. Seeing the gray as color, you get more activity. Seeing color as gray, some activity, not as much activity as when you see the color as color. Something similar, not as profound, happening on the right. Those are the numerical results from the PET imaging experiment. So again, the brain activity patterns are changing in line with the suggestion, in line with the experience, not in line with the stimulus. All right. And just so you know, you can actually get similar kinds of results just with imagery. If you take a randomly selected people off the street and ask them to do this again, you can get very similar kinds of changes, as you can see here. Very similar kinds of changes with hypnosis and imagery. So it's not so much hypnosis that's at issue here, I think, but rather, just to make the point again, that the brain is changing in accordance with the experience, with the subject's perceptual experience, not in accordance with the stimulus. Okay, so what you've got in hypnosis are suggestions for imaginative experiences that somehow distort subjective reality, somehow distort the person's subjective experience. All of these hypnotic suggestions have in common that one way or another they distort the subject's conscious experience. They affect explicit memory, but not implicit memory. They affect explicit perception, but not implicit perception. In post-hypnotic suggestion and in those kind of motor suggestions that I talked about earlier, you're getting suggestions affecting voluntary control of action. So if we define hypnosis, as we did in the very first lecture here, as having to do with conscious experience and conscious control, we can see that hypnosis can affect both the subject's conscious experience of memory, of perception, or whatever, but also the subject's conscious control behavior. And we're now beginning to see some of the consequences of these alterations in conscious experience in terms of brain activity. That's a line of research that is just getting going now in a couple of laboratories. Okay, so much for hypnosis and hysteria. Next week we'll take up the phenomena of meditation and similar kinds of phenomena that ordinary people can experience under ordinary circumstances. Your GSIs in section this week are going to show you a video of hypnosis so you can kind of see for yourself what hypnosis is like. Please be kind to them. The video is a very old video. It is the best demonstration of hypnosis I have ever seen. Even though the quality is crummy, bear with it. You'll get something out of it. Thank you very much.